Hi everyone, I'm Alex, short for Alexandra. Last year, my world collapsed. Dad passed away suddenly, leaving behind that old seaside house and a decent chunk of savings that should have been a comfort to our family. But who knew it would become the start of my nightmare? My aunt, Dad's sister, a woman I'd called Auntie Linda since I was a kid, suddenly turned into a monster. She'd always been jealous of our family. Dad used to say she was small-minded, but don't hold it against her too much. Now, for the sake of that inheritance, she was willing to push me into the abyss. It all started on a crisp autumn morning, the kind where the salt air from the ocean mixes with the faint scent of pine from the woods behind our house. The old seaside cottage, our family home for 3 generations, sat perched on a rocky cliff in a sleepy coastal town in Maine, the kind of place where everyone knows your business and the waves crashing below are the loudest gossip. Dad, Jack Harlan, had built his life there, a retired lobsterman with calloused hands and a laugh that could chase away storms. He'd trap lobsters by day, fix up the creaky porch by night, and tell stories about shipwrecks and mermaids to anyone who'd listen. Me? I was his only daughter, 28 years old, fresh out of a dead-end marketing job in Portland, crashing back home to help him after Mom died of cancer 5 years earlier. As a girl raised by a single dad in a fishing town full of rough-edged men, I'd learned early to be tough, tying knots with fingers that blistered, hauling pots that weighed more than I did, and staring down stairs that lingered too long. But nothing prepared me for the betrayal that would test every ounce of that grit. That morning, I woke to the phone ringing like a foghorn. It was the neighbor, Mrs. Ellis, her voice cracking. "Alex, honey, come quick. Your dad's down." I bolted out of bed, heart slamming against my ribs, threw on jeans and a flannel shirt, Dad's favorite, and raced down the gravel path to his place. The cottage door was ajar, and there he was, sprawled on the kitchen floor amid shattered coffee mugs, his fishing hat still perched crookedly on his head. The ambulance came too late. "Heart attack," they said. Just like that, the man who'd taught me to tie knots and face the tide was gone. I sank to my knees beside him, my hands, still scarred from helping with the traps, clutching his cold ones. "Daddy," I whispered, the word breaking like a wave on rocks. In that moment, I vowed silently, whatever came next, I'd honor him. Little did I know, honoring him would mean fighting the woman who'd shared his blood but none of his heart. The funeral was a blur of gray skies and black umbrellas. The town turned out, fishermen in their oilskins, the diner waitress who'd slipped him extra pie, even the lighthouse keeper who'd shared a flask with him on stormy nights. Auntie Linda was there too, of course, her 2 daughters, my cousins Emily and Sophie, flanking her like sentinels. Linda was the picture of mourning, sleek black dress hugging her figure, pearls around her neck, and eyes red-rimmed from what I assumed was grief. She hugged me tight, her perfume cloying like wilted roses, her manicured nails digging just a bit too deep into my back. "Oh, Alex, my poor girl," she whispered, her breath hot against my ear. "Jack was like a father to me too. We'll get through this together." Her voice was honey over thorns, and as she pulled back, her eyes flicked over me, not with sympathy, but appraisal. Like she was already measuring what she could take. Together. That word stuck like a barnacle. Dad had always been the rock of the family, the one who bailed Linda out time and again. She'd married young to a slick accountant named Richard, had Emily and Sophie, but the marriage crumbled under his gambling debts. Dad loaned her money for the divorce, let her crash in the cottage for months, even co-signed on her failed attempt at opening a boutique in town. "She's family," he'd say with a shrug, though I'd catch the worry lines etching deeper into his forehead. "Blood's thicker than salt water, but sometimes it tastes bitter." As his daughter, I'd seen the toll it took on him. Nights he'd pace the porch, muttering about ungrateful kin. I'd rub his shoulders, brew him tea, and promise, "I've got your back, Dad. Always." He'd pat my hand, his eyes crinkling. "You're the strong one, kiddo. Don't let em dim your light." A week after the burial, we gathered in the cottage's living room for the will reading. The lawyer, Mr. Hargrove, a wiry man with spectacles perched on his nose like a gull on a post, sat at Dad's scarred oak table, papers fanned out like a poker hand. Emily and Sophie fidgeted on the sagging couch, scrolling their phones, their designer bags a stark contrast to the salt-worn cushions. Linda perched on the armchair, legs crossed elegantly, her manicured nails tapping a silent rhythm that set my teeth on edge. I stood by the window, staring at the ocean churning below, the horizon a smudge of steel gray, my arms crossed over my chest like armor. At 5 feet 6 inches with wind-tousled brown hair and freckles from too many days under the sun, I felt exposed in my simple black dress, no pearls, no pretense. Hargrove cleared his throat. Jack's estate is straightforward. The cottage and surrounding acre go to Alexandra, as his sole heir and caretaker. The savings, about $250,000 after taxes, split equally among the children. Alex gets half, Linda and her daughters divide the rest. He paused, adjusting his glasses. Jack was clear, he wanted the house preserved as a family legacy, under Alex's stewardship. The room went still. I felt Linda's gaze boring into me like a drill, sharp and unyielding. Emily glanced up, her face paling. Sophie whispered something that made her sister elbow her sharply. Linda? She smiled, a thin, brittle thing that didn't reach her eyes, her red lips curving like a hook. How generous of Jack, she said softly, her voice laced with something venomous disguised as grace. Alex, you've always been his golden girl. The house suits you, such a fixer-upper for a single woman starting over. We'll manage with our share. There it was, the subtle dig, the implication that I was adrift, unworthy without a man or a proper life. I swallowed the retort rising in my throat, nodding instead. Inside, a spark ignited, not fear, but fury. This was Dad's gift to me, his way of saying I could stand alone. I wouldn't let her poison it, I nodded, relief washing over me like a retreating wave, mingled with a fierce protectiveness. The cottage was more than bricks and mortar, it was Dad's soul etched into every beam, the place where he'd taught me to bait a hook without flinching, to mend a net with steady hands. I'd already started dreaming of fixing it up. New shingles on the roof, a fresh coat of whitewash, maybe turning the attic into a writing nook where I could pen the stories I'd bottled up since Mom's death. Portland city grind had worn me down, the catcalls on the commute, the glass ceilings in meetings. This felt like a fresh start, a chance to rebuild on my terms, as a woman claiming her space. But as Hargrove packed his briefcase and the cousins filed out, their heels clicking dismissively on the hardwood, Linda lingered. She poured us coffee from the percolator, her movements deliberate and performative, like she was staging a scene. You know, Alex, she said, handing me a mug, steam curling like smoke signals, her rings glinting under the lamp. Jack and I talked a lot toward the end. He worried about you, alone in that big house, no husband, no kids to carry on. Said you might need guidance. A woman's touch, perhaps. Her eyes flicked to the window, then back, appraising my figure, my bare ring finger. I'm here if you need me. Family sticks together, especially us girls in a man's world. I sipped the coffee, bitter on my tongue, the heat burning my palm like a warning. Thanks, Auntie. Means a lot. But as she drove away in her shiny SUV, courtesy of Dad's last bailout, I couldn't shake the chill. It was like the air had thickened, pregnant with unspoken storms. Her words lingered, us girls. As if she saw me as a rival to be diminished, not a niece to uplift. That night, alone in the loft, I traced the scars on my hands from years of helping Dad, whispering to the shadows, she won't take this from me. I swear it. The first cracks appeared subtly, like hairline fractures in sea glass, but they cut deep, especially for a woman already navigating a town that viewed single daughters with pitying eyes. A month in, I was settling into the rhythm of coastal life. Mornings, baiting traps with the old crew, Tommy and Big Mike, grizzled salts who'd known me since I was a gap-toothed kid in pigtails hauling bait buckets. They treated me like one of their own, but I'd catch the occasional awkward pause, the little lady slipping out before a quick correction. Afternoons, sanding the porch rails, the salty wind whipping my hair into tangles, my muscles aching in that satisfying way that reminded me of my strength. Evenings, Sarah, my best friend and confidant of 6 months, a soft-spoken librarian from the next town over with a no-nonsense bob and a tattoo of a lighthouse on her wrist, would drive up, her Prius crunching gravel. We'd cook clam chowder on the wood stove, share a bottle of Pinot, and talk late into the night about dreams deferred, the quiet rage of women overlooked. Sarah was the calm to my gathering storm, her laugh a reminder that sisterhood could be a lifeline. One evening, as we sat on the porch swing, the sunset bleeding orange across the waves, Sarah's phone buzzed. She frowned at the screen, her brow furrowing like a gathering squall. "It's from the library group chat. Someone posted about you, says you're unwell since Jack died. Grief-stricken, maybe seeing things? Unfit for that big house alone." I snatched the phone, scrolling through the thread, my stomach twisting into knots. The post was anonymous, but the details screamed Linda, mentions of me talking to shadows at night, forgetting bills, needing intervention from a strong hand. Comments piled on, "Poor Alex, always the wild one. Jack should have left it to family who can handle it." My blood boiled, a slow simmer turning to rage. This is bullshit. I talked to her last week. She asked about the house, acted like the doting aunt. Sarah squeezed my hand, her grip firm. People talk. Small town. But if it's her, it's classic gaslighting. Making you doubt yourself, especially as a woman. They love painting us as hysterical. I paced the porch, the boards creaking under my boots, the ocean's roar mirroring the fury in my chest. Hysterical? I'd buried my mother at 23, held Dad through his quiet breakdowns, clawed my way through a job market that favored pretty faces over sharp minds. I wouldn't let her rewrite me as the fragile flowered. I confronted Linda the next day at her rental, a cramped apartment above the hardware store, smelling of mothballs and microwave dinners, the walls papered in faded florals that screamed faded dreams. She answered the door in a silk robe, cigarette dangling from her lips, her hair teased into a bouffant that defied the humidity. "Alex. What a surprise. Coffee? Or tea, something soothing for your nerves?" Her eyes raked over me, lingering on my work-worn jeans, as if my practicality was a flaw. "Cut the crap, Auntie," I said, stepping inside, the door clicking shut behind me like a trap. The place was a mess, unopened mail piled on the counter, Emily's old cheerleading trophies gathering dust, Sophie's forgotten stuffed bear slumped in the corner. The rumors. The post. "It's you, isn't it? Trying to make me look unstable, like some damsel who can't hold her own?" Her eyes widened, all feigned innocence, the cigarette ash dropping like dirty snow. "Me? Oh, honey, I'm just worried. Jack's death hit you hard, I see it in your eyes, that lost look. You called me last month at 2 a.m., rambling about his ghost in the attic, how the waves whisper his name. Lies, every syllable a dagger wrapped in velvet. I'd never called." But her voice dripped concern, a spider spinning silk around its prey. "Your family. A young woman alone, it's dangerous. If you can't manage the estate, maybe, a trustee? For your own good. Us women have to look out for each other, right? Before some man swoops in and takes advantage." Her words were a slap, veiled as sisterly advice, but I saw the calculation: undermine my independence, paint me as needy, then position herself as the savior. I leaned in, my voice low and steady, the rage coiling like a spring. "Save the act, Linda. Dad's journal says plenty about your worries, all the times you came crawling for cash, leaving him drained. This isn't concern, it's greed. And if you think I'll crumble, you've forgotten who raised me." Her smile faltered, just a flicker, but I caught it. As I left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the trophies, a fire kindled in me, not just defense, but vengeance. She wanted to play dirty? I'd drag her into the light and watch her burn. That night, I dug out Dad's old sea chest from the attic, brass-bound, salt-crusted, a relic from his lobstering days. Inside, faded photos of Mom and me on the beach, her laughter frozen in grainy black and white, his lobsterman's license, stamped with pride, and a leather journal, pages yellowed like old sails, the spine cracked from years of secrets. I flipped through, the ink faded but legible, Dad's blocky handwriting a comfort. Entries about the sea, storms that tested his mettle, me as a girl learning to captain my own boat. Then, toward the end, Linda's at it again. Borrowed 10K for business, swears she'll pay back. But her eyes, greedy as gulls, always circling. Told her no more. Alex, if I'm gone, watch your back. The house is yours, don't let her sink her claws. You're the fighter, girl, make her pay for every slight. The journal hit like a rogue wave, tears blurring the page, but they weren't weakness, they were fuel. Dad had known her poison, had armed me in his quiet way. I showed Sarah the next day over lunch at the Harbor Cafe, the gulls wheeling overhead like witnesses. She traced the words with her finger, her librarian's eye sharp. This is gold, Alex. Proof she's got a history of mooching, manipulating. But we need more if it escalates. And it will, she's not the type to slink away. Sarah, with her history of escaping an abusive ex, understood the game. Women like Linda thrived on isolation, on making you question your sanity until you handed over the keys. We'll build the case, she said, clinking her coffee mug against mine. Your revenge, served cold and legal. Escalate it did, with a venom that targeted every insecurity I'd ever buried. 2 weeks later, a certified letter arrived, from Linda's lawyer, a sleazy type named Carver out of Portland, his signature a greasy scrawl. Notice of contest, validity of will. She claimed Dad was of unsound mind when he signed it, influenced by me, his devoted but manipulative daughter. And get this, she alleged I was unfit to inherit due to ongoing mental health issues, citing witness statements from concerned parties. Unfit? The word seared, echoing every boardroom dismissal, every date who'd called me too intense. The cottage was my anchor, the savings my lifeline to fix it up, maybe start a small charter business for women-only trips, empowering sales across the bay. Without it, I'd be adrift, just another woman at the mercy of the tide. My blood ran cold, but the cold forged steel. I called Hargrove in a panic, he sighed over the line, his voice a gravelly anchor. Standard tactic in family disputes, especially when a daughter's involved, question her stability first. We'll fight it, but it'll go to probate court. Gather your ducks, Alex, character witnesses, financials, medical records. And steel yourself, she'll come for your throat. Medical records. That's when the gaslighting kicked into overdrive, a psychological siege designed to break a woman's spirit. Linda started calling daily, her voicemails a syrupy poison laced with barbs, just checking on you, dear. Heard you missed a trap run, fog in your head? A lady needs her rest. Then the witnesses trickled in, each one a knife twisted by familiarity. Mrs. Ellis, the neighbor who'd found Dad, showed up with cookies and a hesitant confession, her apron twisted in her hands. Linda asked about you. Said you were muttering to yourself on the cliff path, something about ghosts calling your name. I mentioned the time you screamed at the waves after your mom died. Thought it was kindness to share. Screamed at waves? That was grief raw and raging, the kind society tells women to swallow silent. But Linda twisted it into madness. She even roped in old Doc Riley, the town GP who'd treated my depression in college, a rough patch after Mom's diagnosis, meds for 6 months, therapy that taught me to armor my heart. She visited him as a concerned aunt, batting lashes and dropping hints about family duty, and walked out with a vague note, patient history of anxiety, monitor for relapse in high-stress scenarios, such as inheritance disputes. By month's end, the town buzz was deafening, a chorus of judgment that hit hardest from other women. At the diner, whispers followed me like shadows. Poor Alex, lost her marbles with Jack, always the dramatic one. My lobster crew, good guys like Tommy and Big Mike, pulled me aside after a haul, their faces etched with concern. Heard you're selling the place? If you need help, lass. Selling? I hadn't breathed a word, but the assumption stung, that a woman alone couldn't hold the line. Sarah was my buoy, my co-conspirator. We'd hole up in the cottage, her poring over legal pads by lantern light while I paced the creaky floors, my bare feet slapping wood like war drums. She's building a case, Sarah said one night, candlelight flickering on her face as thunder rumbled outside, rain lashing the windows like accusations. Gaslighting you to look unstable, the oldest trick for sidelining women. We counter with facts, your strength, not her fiction. We started our own investigation, two women weaving a net from threads of truth. I digitized Dad's journal, scanning pages with my phone's flashlight. Sarah cross-referenced Linda's old bank statements, public records from her divorce, pulled from the county clerk's dusty files. Turns out, she'd borrowed over $50,000 from Dad over the years, never repaid, each loan a chain in her debt shackles. And that boutique? It folded after she invested in pyramid schemes peddled by smooth-talking mentors who preyed on desperate housewives. She's drowning, Sarah murmured, her finger jabbing the printouts. And she'll pull you under to save herself. But we're the tide now. But Linda wasn't done, she escalated to surveillance, a predator's gaze that made my skin crawl. One foggy dawn, as I baited pots at the harbor, my hands slick with herring, the crew's banter of fragile normalcy, a black sedan idled across the dock. Inside, a guy with binoculars, scribbling notes, his stare lingering too long on my bent form. Private eye, no doubt, hired to document my erratic behavior. That afternoon, Carver's office sent supplemental evidence, photos of me wandering the beach at dusk, disheveled and agitated, my hair wild from the wind, my face streaked with salt from unshed tears. Wandering? I was collecting driftwood for the stove, dreaming of bonfires where women could speak freely. But in her lens, I was unhinged, a threat to the family legacy she coveted. The breaking point came at the preliminary hearing, a stuffy county courtroom smelling of polished wood and stale coffee, the air thick with the weight of judgments past. I arrived in my best button-down blouse and slacks, hair pulled back in a no-nonsense ponytail, Sarah at my side like a shield sister, Hargrove clutching a briefcase like a talisman. Linda swept in like a storm cloud, designer suit tailored to accentuate her figure, hair coiffed in victory waves, Emily and Sophie in tow as moral support, their eyes downcast, complicit in their silence. Carver rose, all smarm and silk ties. Your Honor, my client contests the will on grounds of undue influence and beneficiary incapacity. Ms. Harlan Jr. exhibits signs of mental instability, witness affidavits enclosed, painting a picture of a woman unraveling under pressure. The judge, a stern woman named Voss with silver-streaked hair and eyes like honed steel, bless her, a rare ally in a system stacked against us, peered over her glasses. Specifics, Mr. Carver. This court doesn't entertain fishing expeditions. He flourished papers like a magician's cards. First, Doc Riley's note, twisted to imply chronic hysteria. Second, Mrs. Ellis's affidavit, painting me as erratic and emotional. Third, Linda's own testimony, sworn and notarized, her script a masterpiece of maternal manipulation. She took the stand, dabbing her eyes with a lace hanky, her voice quivering just so. Your Honor, Jack was my big brother, my protector in this cruel world. But Alex, after her mother's death, she changed. Night terrors, paranoia about shadows in the house. Jack confided in me, he feared leaving the estate to a daughter who might squander it in delusion, alone and vulnerable. I stepped up, for the family legacy, for what women like us deserve after years of sacrifice. Lies, every one, delivered with such pathos that the courtroom leaned in, the male bailiff's face softening, the female clerk averting her eyes in discomfort. It was the perfect performance, the caring aunt versus the troubled girl, a trope as old as the hills. Voss turned to me, her gaze probing. Ms. Harlan, response? Hargrove stood, his voice steady as a lighthouse beam. Objection, Your Honor, speculative and gendered nonsense. My client has full medical clearance, we'll submit records. But it was thin gruel against her feast of fabrication. Voss adjourned for 2 weeks, granting Linda temporary oversight of the estate. To protect assets pending evaluation. And Ms. Harlan, psychological assessment recommended. I stumbled out into the rain, Sarah's arm around my waist, the downpour soaking us to the bone. She's winning, I choked, the words tasting like bile, my fists clenched against the injustice. The cottage, locked now, keys with Carver, its doors barred to me like a prison. Dad's savings frozen, my dreams iced over. Me, a pariah in my own town, whispers following me like ghosts, always knew she was too headstrong. That night, holed up at Sarah's apartment, a cozy walk-up lined with bookshelves groaning under feminist tomes and dog-eared mysteries, I hit rock bottom. Curled on her couch, whiskey burning my throat like liquid fire, I confessed through sobs, what if she's right? What if I am cracking? The house, Dad's ghost in every corner, the way everyone looks at me like I'm fragile porcelain. Sarah slapped the glass from my hand, her eyes fierce as a gale, pulling me up by the shoulders. No. She's the poison, the viper in sister's clothing. This is war, Alex, woman against woman, and you're the one with the spine of steel. We fight smarter, fiercer. Remember the journal? And that PI, let's turn the tables, make her the hunted. We did, igniting Operation Siren, a revenge forged in sisterhood, meticulous and merciless. Sarah, with her research chops honed from years of debunking patriarchal myths in library archives, subpoenaed, via Hargrove, Linda's financials, unearthing a labyrinth of deceit. Buried in the docks, a trail of bad debts, including a recent wire to a consulting firm, the PI's outfit, paid to shadow me like a stalker. I installed a nanny cam in the cottage, sneaking in with a spare key hidden under the loose porch board, a trick Dad taught me, and bingo, Linda rifling through Dad's desk at midnight, pocketing a silver locket, Mom's heirloom, engraved with "To my fierce girl." "This'll fetch a pretty penny," she muttered to herself, her voice tinny through the feed, her face twisted in avarice under the desk lamp. The sight of her thieving hands on my mother's memory? It was the spark that turned my fury to flame. Emily cracked next, the weak link in Linda's chain. Sarah cornered her at the library, studying 4 college apps, her blonde highlights a shield against the world. Over lattes in the back alcove, surrounded by stacks of empowering biographies, Emily spilled like a confessional, "Mom's obsessed. Says the house should have been hers, Dad promised before he married Aunt Clara, back when she was the pretty one. She's in debt up to her neck, Sophie's tuition, her investments in those scam spas for ageless beauty. She made us practice our statements, said it'd teach us to fight for what's ours as women. Please, Alex, don't hate us. We're just scared." It was enough, raw, human, a crack in the facade. Armed with the video, financials, and Emily's reluctant affidavit, Mom coerced witnesses, twisted stories to fit her narrative, we prepped for the full hearing. But Linda smelled blood in the water and struck first. She ambushed me at the harbor, cornering me by the traps as the crew dispersed, the sun dipping low like a blood orange. Rain slicked her raincoat, mascara streaking like war paint down her cheeks, her heels sinking into the mud. "Give it up, niece. Sign over the house, I'll let you keep a room, maybe find you a nice doctor to fix that wild streak. Or I'll bury you in court." Imagine the headlines: grieving daughter unravels, hysteria over heirloom home. "No man will touch you after that, you'll be the town spinster, whispering to waves." I stared her down, rain mingling with the sea spray on my face, my soaked flannel clinging like battle armor. The crew's distant laughs faded, it was just us, 2 women on the edge of the world. "Dad warned me about you, Linda. Greet your anchor, it's dragging you under, and you'll take innocence with you. But me? I'm the storm you should have feared. This ends with you exposed, not me erased." She laughed, sharp as shattered glass, stepping closer, her breath sour with desperation. "Jack was a fool, raising a girl like you, too mouthy, too much. And you're weaker still, playing at revenge." She stormed off, slipping in the mud, but I had my phone recording, her threat, crystal clear, her venom preserved for posterity. As her taillights vanished into the fog, I touched Mom's locket around my neck, whispering, "For you, Dad. For us women who rise." The final hearing dawned bright, a cruel irony against the storm raging in my veins. The courtroom swelled, townsfolk packed the gallery, Tommy and Big Mike nodding fierce support from the back, Mrs. Ellis clutching her purse like a lifeline. Sarah gripped my hand under the table, her whisper a mantra, "You're unbreakable." Linda entered last, chin high, Carver at her elbow like a lapdog, but her eyes darted, nervous, the predator sensing the trap. Emily and Sophie sat rigid, their faces pale masks of regret. Boss called order, her gavel a thunderclap. Carver opened with bluster, more affidavits, a psyche vow from a Portland shrink Linda had greased, we knew. Sarah traced the payment through shell accounts, her hackerlite skills from online forums shining. Incapacity proven, Your Honor. Petition for trustee, my client, a stable matriarch, to safeguard the legacy from a beneficiary's emotional volatility. Hargrove rose, voice steady as a sextant, but it was my moment now. Your Honor, we refute with evidence, not speculation, not stereotypes. First, my clean medicals, sworn by Doc Riley himself, subpoenaed and sheepish, his note retracted in shame. Second, Dad's journal, pages projected like a slideshow, entries of Linda's debts, his fears scrawled in ink that bled like wounds. Gasps rippled through the room, women in the gallery leaning forward, fists clenched, then the hammer fell, the nanny cam video. The screen flickered to life, Linda in the cottage, looting drawers under cover of night, snarling about fetching a penny for Mom's locket, her face a grotesque mask of entitlement. Her complexion drained to ash, lips parting in a silent scream. Fabricated. Carver sputtered, sweat beading on his brow. But Hargrove wasn't done, he was the blade, I the wielder. And this, the audio of her harbor threat, her voice echoing through the speakers, I'll bury you. The town spinster. The gallery erupted, murmurs turning to outrage, a woman's voice from the back, shame. Chaos reigned. Linda lunged forward from the stand, screeching like a harpy, lies. She's the unstable one, framing her own aunt, that jealous little bitch. The word hung, raw and revealing, her mask shattering. Emily stood trembling in the front row, her voice cracking across the room, Mom, stop. It's true, you told us to lie, said it'd teach us to claw our way up. But this is wrong. Sophie buried her face in her hands, sobs muffled. The gallery murmured like a rising tide, Voss banged her gavel, her face thunderous. Order. Ms. Harlan, explain yourself. Now. She crumpled, a house of cards in a hurricane, her pearls scattering like tears across the floor. Jack owed me. The house was mine by right, he promised it when I was the pretty sister, before he wasted it on that weak Clara and her brat. Alex, she's weak, like her mother, always whining. I did what I had to, for my girls, for survival in this man's world. But it was over, her confession a noose of her own weaving. Voss reviewed the evidence, her expression granite carved from justice. Contest denied. Will upheld in full. Furthermore, referral to the DA for perjury, theft, and attempted fraud. Mr. Carver, expect sanctions for abetting this farce. Court adjourned. Bailiffs escorted Linda out, her heels clicking like castanets on tile, her empire in tatters. She twisted back at the doors, eyes venomous slits. This isn't the end, Alexandra. Blood remembers. But it was. The gallery erupted in applause, Tommy whooping, Mrs. Ellis dabbing tears of vindication, women hugging in the aisles. Sarah pulled me into a crushing hug, her whisper fierce against my ear, you slayed her, sister. Revenge tastes like salt and victory. The aftermath was a slow, sweet thaw, the kind that mends salt-stung wounds. The cottage keys returned with a clink of redemption. I spent weeks reclaiming it, scrubbing away the intrusion with bleach and fury, hanging Mom's locket on the mantel where sunlight could kiss it daily. The savings unfroze like a released breath. I paid off the roof with cash from the first charter run, bought new traps etched with women's names, strong ones, like Selkie and Siren. Even hired a contractor for that writing nook, walls papered in sea charts and quotes from Audre Lorde, your silence will not protect you. Linda? She pleaded out in a plea deal that spared her the full weight of her sins, community service scrubbing harbor decks, restitution of Dad's loans plus interest, a gag order that silenced her venom. Last I heard, she's waitressing at the diner, her bouffant deflated, Emily avoiding her calls while building her own life in Boston, Sophie off to college on my dime, a quiet olive branch, because vengeance doesn't mean erasing the innocent. But for Linda, every tip jar rattle is a reminder. She pushed, I rose, and the fall was hers. Sarah and I sealed our bond that summer on the cliff, waves crashing below like thunderous applause, rings exchanged under the old oak, simple bands of sea glass and silver. The cottage buzzes now, women-only charters by day, where we teach knots and share stories of battles won, poetry readings by night, voices rising like tides against the dark. Dad's journal sits open on the table, a talisman of his faith in me. I still hear his laugh in the wind, feel his warning in the tides, Mom's fire in my veins. Karma, you see, isn't blind vengeance, it's the universe's ledger, balancing scales tipped by greed. Linda sought to dim my light, to gaslight a woman into submission, but she forged a phoenix instead. I didn't just win the house, I reclaimed my story, my strength, my right to roar. And if you're watching this, tangled in your own family squall, betrayed by blood, questioned for your fire, hold the line. Gather your evidence, rally your sisters, and let the truth be your trident. The sea always rights itself, and so will you. Rise, warrior. The abyss bows to no one.